Hello and welcome back. I'm actually in the hot seat this time and I'm also doing the introduction speech. So I'll let you take the floor now.
Okay, so would you like to introduce yourself and explain how you got involved in the family business?
Yeah, so my name is Simran. I'm the daughter of the company. Um, my role, the title, is meant to be a business development manager, but I wear so many different hats. So I'm also the accounts manager. I do some project managing. I'm also kind of an installer, as I was in a loft yesterday doing some loft installs. And just the creative aspect, pretty much anything that needs doing, I end up doing it. But yeah, I kind of got into the family business. I've worked for the family business a few times in the past. However, I think I never really used to take it quite seriously. Then in my previous job, I actually got sacked because I didn't really care for it. And when I don't care for something, my standards just drop. I end up coming in late. Like, it was bad. My manager actually caught me looking for other jobs whilst I was sat at my desk. So I think that was kind of the where it kind of started to tip a bit. But yeah, I worked in Manchester temporarily for Manchester City Football Club. It's like a summer camp for children, so they come in from all over the world and they just train with Manchester City Football Club. So I was there temporarily. The timing was perfect. When I finished, I was still actively looking for jobs. Couldn't find anything, and then I fell back into the family business, and I was thinking, oh, shit, I want to be back there. But I think as time went on, I generally developed a liking for my role. Because initially when I started, we were still doing the eco. I think it was the Lads 3 scheme at the time. And it was only until we switched energy providers and the unit rate energy bills went up, like it literally skyrocketed from like 15 pence to about 69p. And I think it was you that brought the idea of going back into solar energy, and I literally jumped at the opportunity, and it's like, yeah, that's something I want to do. I want to be more in the sustainability sector because I feel like it aligns with my values. And yeah, that's how I kind of started in my role.
So tell me a little bit about the area that you're working in.
Yeah.
You're working on the solar side.
Yeah.
So tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, so when you founded the company in 2015, it was off the back of commercial energy, fully funded. But then the government pulled the feed-in tariff. And I remember you saying, like, you spent so much time looking for funding after that because that's what you built the business model on. And, like, how much time did you spend on
Well,
that?
when we came out of, we started in 2015, and it
Hmm.
was based on the back of doing solar with another company on a PPA model, and I thought it might have been easy
Hmm.
to get funding because we did so well out of it. But the model didn't work
Yeah.
because we weren't getting the feed-in tariff from the government. It just meant that there was not enough money for the investors to invest in that area. But with the prices shooting up, I knew the timing was perfect. So
Yeah.
this is where you came into it.
Yeah, and I remember you kind of asked me, you were like, I think we should go into the commercials, like the solar again, because a lot of businesses are going to be struggling with the high energy rates at the moment. A lot of businesses probably went bust because their expenses were so high and they weren't making enough because people were just coming out of COVID. So everyone was kind of like retaining their money in case like they were going back into another lockdown. So it was a really tough time for businesses in general. And because we kind of experienced that as well a little bit, like how tough it was to get back into business, I was all for jumping on the solar side. So yeah, ever since then, I've kind of been trying to put the processes in place, put all the, like, do the, what do you call them? The cash flow forecasts, and, you know, doing all the design, sorting out the website, which seems to be never ending because it's never like, oh, do the website, then carry on. It's just something that you do continuously. So yeah, that's kind of like my role. I primarily work on the commercial solar.
So I believe there's two areas on the commercial side. Can you explain the two areas of funding we have available?
Yes, so the two pieces of funding that we have on commercial. So the first option is fully funded. So the company, as if you're the customer, you're not paying for the system to be fitted on your roof, but you're paying for the energy that it produces. So because the funder pays us, the installers, to fit this system on for you, your roof is then generating electricity in your building. So then you're paying for that electricity at a much cheaper rate than you would be paying your energy provider. So for example, if you're paying your energy provider, let's say 30p, with the renewable energy, because you're cutting out the middleman and you don't have the climate levy charge and you don't have the standing charges, you'll probably be paying half the price. So you're probably paying about 15 pence. I think now it depends. If you've got battery storage, it will be a bit more. It will probably be about 20 pence per kilowatt hour. So yeah, it's just a way for businesses to get energy for a lot cheaper over a 20-year period. And that's kind of works under a PPA model. So that's called a purchase power agreement. So it's an agreement between the tenant, the landlord and the funders. And it's just the arrangement of the rate that they'll be paying over that duration. It does fluctuate a little bit over time because, inflation happens, but essentially not too much as what we experience from 15p to 69 pence. So it does protect you from future inflation as well.
So what size does the business have to be as far as square meters? And
so for the fully funded option, it has to be about 100 kilowatts. So that's approximately 800 square meters of roof space, feasible roof space. We look at kind of the orientation of the roof. So we prefer south facing because that's where you get the horizon of the sun. East and west works as well. North we kind of like to avoid because you don't really get much sun there. The main requirement is half-hourly data, and I think that's where we mainly struggle with businesses, is being able to obtain their half-hourly data so we can analyse their consumption, and based on their consumption we kind of decide what size battery we're going to fit or what size system we're going to fit. And with the fully funded option, because you're not having to pay anything up front, like you're saving from day one. And then the second option is the 50% funding. So there's a 50% grant. The way that works is you have to purchase the system first, and this works for any sized property. So it doesn't have to be a minimum of 100 kilowatt. It could be, you could be a shop, you could be a hairdresser, a restaurant. It works on any size, but you have to be able to pay for the system first. And then as we're doing the applications, whilst we're processing the installation, you do then get your 50% within, I think, 6 to 8 weeks. Once it's the system's been completed. And the good thing about that is that you're halving your return of investment time by half. So for example, our average return of investment period for businesses is generally about 4 years, let's say. And then if you're getting obviously 50% of your funding, that's going to be reduced to 2 years. So you're getting your return of investment a lot sooner.
You recently did an install, which I believe was about 140 kilowatts.
Yeah. Can
you explain that journey?
The bane of my existence. But no, I learnt a lot on that journey. In a nutshell, it was an engineering company, and it took about 5 months, to be honest, to kind of close that sale, because with commercial businesses, there's so many different people involved that have a say in like whether they're going to go ahead with it or not. So generally the process is a lot longer. So I sat this meeting over Zoom with the board director and then 2 other important people, and just went through their return of investments and what that would look like, what they're forecasted to save over that period. Then they ended up going ahead with the sale. Now, I underestimated how easy it would be, because generally the process of completing an install, because I was project managing the whole thing, so I closed the sale and then project managing this 100 kilowatt system job with 46 kilowatt of battery, and we struggled with the DNO initially because there was a third party kind of involved, and I think that delayed things. So it took ages to get the half-hourly ages to get the DNO approved.
What is the DNO?
Oh, sorry, yeah. A DNO is basically a distributor network operator. So we have to inform the grid of the size of system we're fitting on your roof, and because it's a large system, they have to be informed, because on their end they need to prepare for where the energy is going to go. They just need to make sure that it's safe on both sides. So we have to inform them, and they have to approve it before we fit a system on the customer's roof. So we were waiting for approval for quite some time. And because we didn't know we kind of handed that over to someone else. We didn't really quite know what was going on with it. It caused a couple of issues going down the line, where we had to revisit. We had to check that the system size was sufficient, and it turned out that the export rate for that job was about 50 kilowatt hours. So they couldn't export more than 50 kilowatt hours at one time, which is fine, because you're not going to be exporting that. Well, the company wasn't going to be exporting that at one time, but we had to then manage on the weekends where the energy was going to be stored, which is why we had so much battery as well. And then the other thing with that job as well is, I think there's two other things. I think the installers, I'm not an electrician. I'm still learning the ropes about solar. So I'm just trusting what the installer's saying at the same time. And I think I should have done my own due diligence as well, and just do further checks and further educate myself, so that I know what to expect. So I know when the installer's pulling my tail. And then the third thing was the manufacturer that we used. We used Solax, and for a commercial, that was just a nightmare, because you can't get a system. You can't just use any electrical system. If you're missing a piece, you can't just go to the store and get that piece. It has to be programmed by Solax, and I think that prolonged things, because you're then waiting weeks to get this one item. You're then having to arrange things with the installer. And yeah, it just got over tedious. I think one thing that I learned from that, going back, we then got a second installer in, and he kind of he was MCS registered, which is probably what we should have looked at initially. And he said, no, the batteries are too close together. This needs to be redone. Ideally, we need to gut it out and put it in again. So we actually did that, and it took another couple of months or so. To get the timings all right and stuff, but I think the customer was just happy that it was just done correctly in the end, because if anything had gone wrong with one of those batteries, they couldn't claim it back under the warranty, because they would look how close the batteries are together and they say, yeah, that doesn't qualify under the warranty.
So if you had another project like that, how would you change things?
I feel like I've learned so much more on that project, and I think definitely dealing directly with a company to do the DNO. I think that's the first thing. It just cuts out the middleman, and they've already got the relationship with the DNO, so I feel that it won't take as long, because that's how it works when you're applying, with the National Grid, when you're applying for a DNO. They can take months, but if you've got a good relationship with someone there, then it can get pushed through quite quickly. So I think definitely working with the third-party company rather than an individual in that respect. Also planning my items, as in the stock, because I do feel one thing I did do well on that job was I managed to save money where we can on certain products. So I had a spreadsheet. I love a good spreadsheet. I had all the items, the accessories that I wouldn't necessarily know, like cables, everything to the nuts and bolts, literally, on a spreadsheet. I had the prices on, and the various different companies, so I can see who does the cheapest price. And I managed to save a good couple of grand on the actual job, so I'll definitely keep that moving forward. But I think...
And maybe the manufacturer support.
Yeah, definitely the manufacturer. I think we're going to be changing our manufacturer moving forward generally anyway. I think Solace, I've heard great things about. So I'm going to do more research on that and then move forward, get more technical support as well. So I'll make sure I'm dealing directly with the company, someone in the company. But yeah, it was a big learning curve.
It's not so bad when things are going well. It's when they go bad.
Yeah.
That's when you learn.
To be honest, everything else, I feel like my organisation with the project was good. Like, there's areas of improvement, but it was like I tried to get things done in a timely manner. There was a point where the suppliers were telling me that they didn't have the panels, and I need 160 of this specific panel because we've done the design on it. And then that was a bit of a curveball. So yeah, I think just dealing with things as well. I think I'm too quick to panic.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'm learning to just take a sit back, just a deep breath, and then find a solution for the problem, I think.
So how does solar actually work?
Right. So solar energy, you have solar panels, you put them on your roof, you get sunlight that is like beaming onto these panels, and it converts that sunlight energy into an electrical current. Now, when it produces the electrical current, it's in a DC format, so that's a direct current, and I'd like to think of this as more of a unhinged, erratic kind of current. So that then travels to the inverter, where it then converts into an AC current, and that's a safer current to power the business or power the home. And you also have the option of getting battery storage as well. So what you can do with battery storage is, whilst you're generating the energy throughout the day, whilst the sun's out, you can store that excess energy that you're not using into your battery, which you can then use in the evening. And if you box clever, let's say some businesses have a day rate and a night rate. Generally, the night rate is cheaper. So what you then do is you can charge your battery in the evening with the energy from the grid, because you're getting charged a cheaper rate. Let's say that's 15 pence. What's your day rate is 30 pence, let's say. So you charge your battery with the 15 pence rate from the grid, and you can use that energy to then power your system in the day as well, if you need the extra energy.
Can you use batteries by themselves without having the solar?
I suppose you can have a battery by itself and get the energy directly from the grid. If you wanted to be completely off grid, then it would be ideal to get your own system to make you self-sufficient, so you're not having to rely on the grid for that energy.
So is it worth having solar?
100%. I think if you think about it logically, you're essentially becoming your own energy provider. So you're not having to rely on the grid. You're protecting yourself from future inflation, and you're halving your bills. Could be more. You could be saving about 70% on your bills, because you're generating your own energy from a renewable source, the sun. It's powering your home. You're just becoming so self-sufficient. You're not having to rely. It gives you more control as an individual and as a business, because you can also sell energy back to the grid.
So what do you prefer, domestic or commercial?
I prefer commercial. Although it is a headache and it does take longer to get work through the door, when you do get work through the door, it is worth your while. And I think, based on what I've learnt from my first project, is you just have to be... I just prefer dealing with businesses. I think it's the higher clientele. It's more worth my time than dealing with domestic. I do enjoy going to domestic properties and, helping the individuals, but I feel they can be very picky in which system they want, in which panels they want, whereas businesses, they just want a good return of investment, and that's all they really care about. And also being more sustainable as a company. I think their values and their intentions of getting it are different.
Is there any funding available for domestic?
There is. So under the Eco4 grant, you can get solar with a air source heat pump, but from what I believe, it has to be an electric property.
Okay.
And yeah, I think that's the only way it works. There may be some funding for domestic coming in the foreseeable future. We've had some meetings based on the PPA model, whereas if we had a landlord with about 10 properties in an area, because we're only dealing with that one individual, it kind of saves time on the paperwork. So we could potentially do fully funded in that respect on the domestic. It does take a little bit more work and a little bit more planning, because you've got to plan each individual project, and you need about 100 kilowatts worth of jobs to give to the funders, otherwise they won't look at it. But yeah, I think that it, without relying on that, I think there might be some funding for domestic coming as well.
Okay, great. What are your core values with the business?
My core values of the business. I think there's, like you mentioned, being honest. I'm not, if I'm relying on you, I want you to be straight. Because then I'm at your mercy. And if you're taking advantage of that, then I just think there's no point in working together. I just like people being honest. So even with when there was issues with that, a bigger project that I had, although there were issues, I made sure I had a solution and then to go back to the customer with, because I didn't want them to think that I was incapable and I didn't know what I was doing. I always made sure I had a solution to go back to them with. So what was the question? What are the values? I think working in the family business just in itself is a value for me, because I don't want to work in a corporate company where I'm having to answer to certain someone. They have my role predetermined. I like the fact that I get to wear so many different hats in the family business. Yes, it's overwhelming and we have so many discussions about it, but it's the only way that you grow as an individual and kind of build your character.
So where do you see this going over the next 5 years?
Honestly, I see massive things for this company. I can generally see it being national, maybe even international, which is where I'm trying to take it. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is getting the team right in order to for my vision of where I see this company going. I want it to also look after the people working within the team, because I'm very much into like mindset, positivity, high vibration. And if the team doesn't reflect that, then where I picture it in 5 years, it's just probably not going to be, it's going to be far from it. So I think creating a culture of high energy individuals, some low energy, but good energy, like valuable energy to balance out. Just smashing projects, seeing our logo everywhere, literally on billboards, scaffolding everywhere.
Well, I think you want to live abroad, don't you? So it's a way of getting your process in place so you can go abroad and keep an eye on it through a laptop.
Yeah, no, that's the idea. I want to be in Bali, being a digital nomad. But no, my intention is to build a team in this. That want to grow with the business as well. I think that's really important, because if you're just treating it like a job and you're not seeing it as the value, like you're not seeing your value, the value that you put into it to help it grow, then I just think it's a lost lead. Like you're going to just drag the company down. So I do want to build a team, and I'm working on it. But yeah, I think it's difficult at the moment because I wear so many different hats. I need the extra support, but I need to be able to do the task to teach someone how to do it, because I can't just bring someone in, throw them in deep water, and they're like, well, what do I do? Sitting there like a lemon. So
you're putting the training manuals together at the moment, aren't you?
I am. I'm currently doing the training manuals for the loft installers, completely out of my jurisdiction. But yeah, I think it is a strong suit of mine, I'll be honest. I'm quite creative. I do generally like to create things where it's the manuals, the brochure. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to toot my own horn with the brochure because it is bloody fantastic. I need to do one for the commercial, though. That's why we're here. But yeah, I think that's just generally my strong suit, and I would like to spend more time doing things like that. But I also need to focus on bringing the business in. So.
Okay, I think that was it.
Thank you for having me on this podcast. Hopefully, throughout this series, we'll have more information on the eco industry, on the renewable industry, and just the ins and outs of what it's like to be in a family business.
Great.